Hello, everybody. Welcome to the call. It's JJ Conway. I'm really glad that you're online. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. Just give me about 2 or 3 more minutes. We're getting everything set up for our in-person class. And if you have questions while you're waiting, feel free to email them to me at ministerwiggins@gmail.com. Okay. Give me just a second. I'm going to get started. Okay, so I keystoned it to the size of the projector, but the slides aren't sized for full screen. So now I have to adjust it again. Give me just a second. It looks fine for the folks online, but for the people in person, it doesn't look, it's all skewed. Okay, I guess that's as good as that's going to get. All right, that's about as good as it's going to get. All right, everybody, just give me a second to find my clicker, and we will get started. Hello, hello, it's JJ Conway. I want to welcome you all to our Real Estate Investing 101 class. First, before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself because I don't recognize the numbers that we have today. So I have been a financial coach since I first got out of debt in 1998. I've been investing in real estate since I bought my first house to live in 1999, and we were really doing well with real estate investing, buying properties and bringing in, $20,000 to $30,000 a month, and we were on our way, but then lost everything because the market crashed and all of our properties were bought with debt. And so I climbed out of almost $1 million of debt. I still got a teeny tiny little bit of that left, but over the last 10 years, I climbed out of almost $1 million of debt. And now I empower others to improve their lives through financial and real estate education. What we're going to cover today is we're going to cover bird dogging. This is kind of an introduction of how to get started in real estate investing. So this is a little bit different than my normal Real Estate Investing 101 class because this class is primarily focused on getting started, whereas the 101 class talks about all the different ways to make money, not lose. We don't want you to lose, to make money in real estate investing. Okay, so why real estate? We're going to talk about bird dogging and wholesaling. Those are the easiest ways to get started in real estate investing when you really don't have any experience. And then we're going to talk about how to watch out for scams. Just a little disclaimer, this is a free class today, but we are recording this as a fundraiser for Kingstown Family Life Center to help with flood recovery costs. So for those of you who are in the room, as well as those of you who are listening online, please, please, please consider making a donation. You can go to bit.ly, so that's bit.ly/ Love helping, all lowercase, and that will take you to our donations page. You know, one of the things we have to understand about abundance and wealth building is that it's really, really difficult to get ahead. Every step of the way that you go, there's going to be things that happen to take you off. Hang on, everybody. Hang on just a second. So there's things that cause you to off ramp. So, you know, if you're starting off in poverty like many of us have, then you end up making some money, and then you hit policies where all the public assistance gets taken away from you, and now it's harder for you to actually make that jump up to middle class. And if you push through that and you make it to middle class, then you start to hit, you're doing better, you're making more money, you're putting aside a little something, and then you hit that 150 AGI where all these other tax protections and some of these good deductions you have, it seems like they just kind of punch you in the gut because now you're making too much money. And it hits you hard, and it forces you to go back down a little bit, and so it makes it really difficult for you to make that jump to upper middle class. And each step along the way, there is something that keeps us from getting ahead. But if we do the things that will allow us to push through that, and if we connect with mentors and people who've made those leaps and jumps, we will be able to make it all the way to having generational abundance, where it's not just that we have something today or drive a nice car today, but our family tree has wealth for generations. And that's why I love real estate, because real estate is something almost everybody can start on that path to generational abundance, whether or not they have a degree, whether or not they've been trained. It's something most of us can do. I have found it to be one of the most repeatable, ethical, and understandable ways to build wealth. Now, there's a lot of different ways to build wealth. I'm sure you can attest to that. There's a lot of different ways to build wealth out there, and some are way more exciting than stock markets and real estate. But as a financial planner, I've seen more people get into debt, and I've seen more people ruin their lives over these exotic wealth-building methods, as opposed to people who invest in real estate and do it the smart way. Okay, so you're sitting there and you're watching my class, and I'm really glad you are watching online. I'm really happy for the people that we have online today and the people that we have here in the Kingstown Family Life Center. But you might be thinking, well, JJ, that sounds great, but I really don't want to buy any houses, and I really don't want to deal with tenants and toilets and leaking plumbing. Okay, so I've got to tell you, there's 15 ways that we're going to talk about in this class, but there's many more ways to build wealth from real estate, even if you never buy the house. So here's an example of the different ways that you can make money in real estate. You've got bird dogging and wholesaling, which is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk more detail about that today. But you've got all kinds of creative strategies where you might find owner financing, you might do lease-to-own deals, investing in tax liens, new construction. There's all kinds of ways to make money from these things without buying the house. Now, of course, over here on the right-hand side, you've got the traditional ways that we all think of when we think of real estate. But I would like you to consider, I know several ladies in their 60s and 70s who are making a killing with tax liens, and they never buy the house. Every once in a while, they end up with a house. But most of the time with tax liens, you think you're going to get a house for pennies on the dollar, but what you make is fantastic interest. So if you're interested in this, come out next month, because we are going to be talking about tax liens, and I'm hoping that we'll have at least 2 of these ladies come actually tell you what they do. So come on out for that. All right? So we're going to do a quick overview of those 15 different ways to make money in real estate, and then we'll take a quick break. And for those who want to stay behind, we'll do bird dogging and wholesaling. All right? The first way to get started, and it really depends on the neighborhood you live in, is called bird dogging. Bird dogs are people who go out and find deals for other investors. They get paid about 1 to 3% of the deal for finding these properties for the investor. It's kind of like an exchange. The investor has more money than they have time, and you as a new investor, you have lots more time than you have money. So you're trading your time finding properties for their money and buying and rehabbing the properties. It's a win-win. Of course, in order for this to happen, you got to have two things. One, you got to have some investors that really are the real deal who will actually buy these properties off of you if you, or when you find them, not off of you. You got to know, if you find those, you got to know what kind of properties they like. And this is really location dependent. So, you know, I've been teaching this class for 5 years now, and I live in a neighborhood now, in an area of the country now, where this is not a very popular concept. On the East Coast, everybody gets started with bird dogging. So you have to kind of consider the neighborhood that you're with and find investors that are willing to compensate you for finding them deals. Hint, hint, I'm one. You got to also be careful about things like bird dogging and wholesaling that we'll talk about on the next slide, because some states do not allow you to get compensated for a real estate deal if you are not licensed to broker a real estate deal. Okay, so just find out your local laws, and by connecting with local investors, you'll be able to learn those pretty quick. The next step, the next way to make money in real estate investing when you're getting started is wholesaling. Now, wholesaling is like bird dogging. Have you heard of this term before? Have you heard of these terms? So bird dogging is the person that finds a property like, oh, there's a vacant house over there. I'm going to get that address, and I'm going to send that address to an investor I know who's looking for houses like this. With wholesaling, it takes it to a whole nother level, because what you do now is you actually approach the person of the vacant house, or you approach the person who's got a house for sale by owner, and you negotiate a juicy deal. And when you negotiate a juicy deal, you have a contract, and you can take that contract and assign it or sell it to an investor. Many times, a wholesaler will get well paid for saving the investor all that time it takes to find the property and negotiate the deal. And you don't actually close on the property. The investor closes on the property, but you get paid a cut. So what that looks like in real life is the last house that I bought in cash was $3,000. And the guy who found me that deal, I paid him $3,000 as a wholesaler. It was a $90,000 house. I was happy to pay him his $3,000 to get me that property at such a great discount. And it turned out he was a friend of his had passed away, and the son didn't want to deal with the property and just wanted to get it off his chest as fast as possible. Win, win, win. A win for me as an investor, a win for the wholesaler, and a win for the son who did not want to be a landlord. Okay? The next way we're going to talk about to invest in real estate is tax liens and tax sales. And I put both of those terms up there because it really depends on the jurisdiction that you live in, which one they do. So here they do tax liens, and in different counties that I lived in on the East Coast, most of them did tax liens, and there's a few that we invested in that did tax sales. I say invested, but I didn't actually close on any of those, so it's probably a little disingenuous. The way that this works with tax liens is, you know, our taxes, they pay the cops. They keep the buses running and all that. Well, when people don't pay their property tax, the county or parish still needs to keep all those people paid and still needs to keep all those social services going. So one way that they can get some money, even though somebody's not paying their property tax, is to do a tax lien where an investor comes in, pays that tax. So now the county or parish has the money to go forward and pay their cops and keep the public services open. And since the people, you know, people generally want to stay in their house, they have an incentive to pay that money back to the investor with interest. And out here, Cattle Parish, it's 17% interest. Well, you're not going to make 17% interest in the stock market right now. So, I mean, you know, this can be a really good deal. Some counties I've lived in, it's 24% interest. Some I've lived in, it's 12% interest. And those are just starting amounts. The great thing about this is that you can really make a lot of money very fast for your retirement if you're starting late, like most of us on my call today are starting late. Okay, maybe we made the mistake I made and let some sweet-talking man talk us into liquidating all of our savings to help further his goals. Or maybe we did, you know, we just were partying during our young years and having fun, and we just didn't pay attention to money. You know, sometimes we're just not paying attention to what we're supposed to be doing. And then we're 40 or we're 50 or we're 60 and we're like, wow, I don't have anything. I got to do something about it. This is an excellent strategy. Now, I just gave a super simplified version. There are so many different variations of tax liens and tax sales. That's why we're going to have a whole class just on this process next month, okay? Because it's very complicated. But, I mean, no, it's not that complicated. But there's a lot of different ways, and you have to know which ones work for your jurisdiction. Number 4 is new construction. Now, there's 2 different ways that you can profit from new construction. And so before I talk about those 2 different ways, I want to explain a little bit about how the new construction process works. So let's say Farmer X passes away and his family sells off his ranch to a developer. That developer is going to want to go to the bank and get money so that they can start building houses and things on that land. Well, the bank is going to want to see that people are buying into this and that this project is going to be profitable. So the builder is usually going to sell their first phase of lots at a very discounted price just to get an influx of people into the door. That way, they can show the bank, hey, this is a viable project, people are behind us, we're going to make a lot of sales, and all of us are going to make good money. All right? So the reason that really helps us is method number 1, you could be one of those investors that buys in on the ground level before the builder has even started to break ground. You put in a small down payment, and then by the time that house is actually built, the builder will have opened up another phase. They might go back to the bank to get more money, and they'll just keep opening up more phases. And each phase, generally, those houses cost more and more and more. So I could buy into a property. I had the opportunity. Now I kicked myself for not doing it. I had the opportunity to buy into one for $1,000, and I didn't even have to pay the builder. This is why I'm so mad I didn't do it. I didn't even have to pay the builder to sign on the dotted line, but I was trying to buy my own house, and I wasn't thinking. I let my emotions get into it. See, we got to not let our emotions get into real estate investing. But I let my emotions get into it, and I didn't sign. And I wished I had, because I could have turned around and sold that contract for about $20,000 more than what I would have contracted with him for that house. And that's how flipping new construction for equity works. You get in at the ground level. By the time the house is actually built, you sell that to somebody else. You sell that contract to somebody else, and you pocket the difference. Okay? Another way that people can profit from new construction, and I have to admit, I laughed at this when my girlfriend 20 years ago said she was going to do this. Another way you can profit from new construction is you can actually turn new construction into rentals. The reason I laughed at my girlfriend is because new construction is expensive. It's like the most expensive house you're going to buy. And real estate investors like to get stuff at a discount, because the only way to build safety into your real estate investing is to get it at a super discount. That way, if you have to sell it in a hurry, you can. When people buy new construction for rentals, they get stuck with these properties, and they can't rent it for enough, and they can't get the right people in. And I mean, I didn't want to fall into that trap. But let me tell you what she did. She bought the new properties, new condos. She had very low maintenance costs. And so for her, she was in an area of the country where they did a lot of corporate housing. So a lot of generals coming to town, a lot of high corporate executives. She turned her condos into corporate housing, charging $3,000 and $4,000 a month for those companies to fill with their executives. Whereas her mortgage was only about $1,000 to $1,200 on her most expensive one. All of her properties were paid off in 12 years, and she is now financially independent. The next one, flipping, this is one that we're all pretty familiar with from the late night TV commercials and all the flipping shows that have come out. It's where you take a discounted property, basically something, the roof is bad, the floor is bad, it just can't sell. You buy it real cheap, you fix it up, and you sell it real fast for a profit. We have to watch out for the fact that all these infomercials and TV shows make it seem like it's so easy and profitable. There are a lot of things that can go wrong in flipping. So I recommend these 2 shows because they've been pretty honest. Flip This House or Flipping Boston, like they show you all the stuff that goes wrong. Now, they have the connections in the network to get people to come in at a discount and help them and make it work out. But you want to understand those details. And sometimes we don't get that from the late night TV commercials, right? There are a lot of costs that go into flipping. You know, it's not just buying the house and renovating it. You've got to think of how much you have to pay every month while, you know, to the lender while you're fixing it up. You got to think about taxes. And of course, Murphy always shows up to a real estate deal. So you got to account for Murphy because he's going to show up one way or another. The great thing about flipping is if you have a solid investor network, and we're going to talk about how to get that later, you will be able to find good properties to flip as well as have a quick avenue of unloading those properties. If the numbers work, if you get it at enough of a discount, property will sell fast. That's the beauty of finding properties at an investment. The cheaper you can get it, the faster it will sell. So here's an example of a flipping deal, okay? In this example, this house was in no, this wasn't in Baltimore. Where was this one? In Capitol Heights? I don't remember. That's a shame. I should remember. I've got it in my class. But this was the last one that I partnered with somebody else on before I went to doing my own investments. And so basically, you can see over down here in the lower left corner, you can see the before picture, and you can see what it looked like. And then you can see some of the renovations. So basically what happened is a group of us ladies, we all pooled our money together. There was a lead investor on it, and she did the bulk of the rehab, and we fixed it up and then sold the property. Now you can see how beautiful it was afterward. I think it was the first or second time I taught this Real Estate Investing 101. It was the first time I'd used this example, and we hadn't sold the house yet. And it was the wholesaling, the Wholesaling 101, where we actually sit down and talk and go in and we get on the internet and we do research on how to value the property and how much you should charge for it and how much you should put into it and how much should you negotiate. You know, you can find a lot of that online. Like you can find out how much people paid for the properties online. So me and my students, we're sitting there and we're digging for it. And one of my students is like, they didn't know it was my deal. They were like, wow, that investor put too much into the property. And I was like, no, they didn't. And then I started digging. I was like, oh man, we're going to lose on this deal. And sure enough, this was the anticipated sales. And it did sell for, I think, $199, but we didn't make as much as we wanted to make on that. But yeah, this was too much for that neighborhood, but it still was a great example of flipping, okay? We're going to come back to this example later because this is an example of private lending, but this right here is the breakdown of how that deal works. So all of us as private lenders put our money in. By time we get paid back and by time you pay back the purchase price and all the renovation and everything, this is how much profit the rehabber would have had. Now that's just one deal. A lot of times you're going to have multiple irons in the fire, okay? And so this is a really great deal for private lenders who don't want to buy their own property. You know, I chipped into their deal. It was real nice and safe for me. I chip in, you do all the work. I get to show up and take pictures, and you're teaching me what I need to know. It's real safe for me, right? Except when it gets when the deal goes south. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about private lenders, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what happened with this deal. Okay, private lenders come in several forms. One form of private lenders is the person who says, hey, if you want to buy a real estate deal, I'll fund your deal for you. You got to pay me like 20% interest, but I'll give you quick cash to go buy that house and renovate it, and you won't have to go through a bank. That's called a hard money lender. That's one type of private lending. But what I'm talking about today is where individuals give you the money for your real estate deals as people who are either contributing or people who are just, they're investing, but it's not like going through the bank. And a lot of times, because the market is so poor right now, people who are sitting on a fair amount of money want their money to move, and they want to make some interest. So you can give them interest that's more than what they get in the market, and they'll fund your deals. It's a great thing. We have a class on this, Private Lending 101. If we get enough interest, we will do a seminar on it. I love that class because we actually go through the presentation that I used when I first got started getting money for my deals. But in this particular deal, I was the private lender on the deal, one of the private lenders on the deal, and we were able to make it happen. So there's a lot of different things you can do with that, basically getting money from somebody to do your deal. All right. The next one that we want to talk about today is foreclosures. And I think most people are familiar with this, but there's a lot about foreclosures I didn't know when I got started. So let me just, if you would, walk through the 3 phases, okay? When the bank is not getting paid for their property, they can force the sale of the property to get their money back. That overall process is called foreclosure, okay? There's 3 phases in foreclosure and 3 phases that you can make money. The first phase is when people aren't paying their bills, but the bank hasn't yet foreclosed. That's what we call distressed sellers. Some people call that pre-foreclosure, okay? That's where you're going to make the best money because nobody's gotten involved with legal fees and all that stuff yet, okay? If nobody pays the bank what the bank needs to prevent a sale, it will go to the foreclosure sale, and then you can possibly acquire that property at the auctions. This is where cash is king because you generally have to pay for that property right on the spot, okay? And a lot of times, with the market being what it is, there's not enough equity in these properties that a lot of investors are going to be willing to pay what the banks want. So the banks, a lot of times, will show up to the auction, and they'll buy the property back. So now the bank owns it, and that's what we call REO, real estate owned. It's owned by the bank, and when you buy it, you have to buy it from the bank. So this is why when sometimes we're looking for a house, we'll see in the MLS or whatever our realtor is working with us, we'll see that this property takes extra paperwork. A lot of times it's because it's a bank-owned property, and they want as much as they can get out of it. You want something at a fair price. Foreclosures, I think, were a lot more profitable when I first got in because a lot more people who were in foreclosure actually had equity in their house. Nowadays, people don't have a whole lot of equity, and you kind of have to create equity by getting the bank to accept less for that house than what's owed on it. And that's what we call a short sale. So number 7 is a short sale. This is where we create equity in an upside-down house by getting the bank to accept less than is owed on it, but still give it to us free and clear. Now, some lenders are going to do this because they don't want to go through all the money and hassle of going to foreclosure. So that's a win-win. And you all know me. I love the win-win. I'm always looking for the win-win or the win-win-win. And so, you know, this is a great strategy to help the lender and yourself. The thing about it is, and this is my personal opinion, short sales take a lot of work. They take building relationships with lenders. They take knowing what lender qualifications are. For each bank, it's going to be different. And it's really not something that I think is a strategy for somebody who just wants to flip a house. This is more like you're getting property. You're going to take the 7 or 8 months it takes to negotiate these deals, and you're going to hold on to that property for a little while. I just don't see enough upside to work these as flips, okay? I highly recommend working with an experienced investor to learn how to work with the different local banks and stuff. And I especially recommend that keep in mind the number 1 rule of real estate. You make your money when you buy. See, too often people buy a house thinking, hey, I'm going to hold on to this house, and in 20 years it's going to double in value, and I'm going to have this equity. But I don't recommend investing that way. I recommend investing so that you're getting a paycheck from the day that you sign that property, whether it's a physical paycheck because you can rent it real quick, or whether it's a virtual paycheck in that you have lots of equity that you can pull from if you have a family emergency or if you have something where you need some money, okay? I don't recommend buying a property at full price value and holding it anticipating that the market will climb, because I lost that $1 million of debt that I was talking about that I was in the beginning of the slides. That's because I had all those properties daisy-chained with debt together, and then when the market crashed, I couldn't unload them. So I'm going to want you to stay away from that. Of course, I love real estate, so if you get these properties buy and hold, then you go into my favorite way of making money with real estate, which is landlording. And this is where you're renting out a property to somebody else. The great thing about this is people always going to need a place to live. And when the market is down, people will rent. And you can use this as a tool to help yourself and help a lot of people. You know, like Dave Meltzer says, I want to help a lot of people, I want to have a lot of fun, and I want to make a lot of money. And for me, landlording allows this because I can help people get on their feet. and I can give them a safe place to get their finances together, knowing they've got a roof over their house. And a lot of times, if you find the right renter, you know, I've got some renters that have been in my property for 7, 8 years, you know, and they take care of a lot of the maintenance, and they just love where they're living, and they're not inclined to move, and it's just working for me. So if you want a landlord, I need to put a class together on this, but Sabria has a class on landlording, so I haven't bothered to make one, and their class is only $20. My class costs way more than that. So, you know, you could go, when theirs comes up, I think they're going to do it in spring. You can take that class, but you can also go to MrLandlord.com. This is one of the most amazing sites ever, and their forum is free. Like, you don't even have to sign up to get emails to just participate and ask your real estate questions, okay? Now, I do want to qualify something on landlording. When we do our walk-in wealths on Saturday mornings, the Saturdays that we don't have this class, which is the first Saturday of the month, the other Saturdays we walk the mall, and a lot of times we talk about landlording. And I often get a new investor that tells me something like, "Oh, I'm gonna get this house, and I'm gonna have a property manager do it, so all I have is passive income. I don't have to lift a finger, and I just have money coming in." There's very, very few investments in real estate that are that passive, because either you're managing the tenant in the property or you're managing the property manager. All right, and a lot of times, you know, my property that's in Baltimore City, right at ground zero, yes, I have property manager for those, right? But everything else I manage myself, because I've been taken advantage of so many times in the past, and I find it's just more efficient, even remotely, to manage it myself. But, you know, something that's in right at ground zero, you need hands-on daily care. You can't just manage that from a distance. You turn around and have a meth lab in your property, you know, you can't do that. So I recommend that really, if you want a landlord and you want to make that kind of money, you know, it's an excellent strategy. You know, if I can just get personal for a second, over the last 18 months, I've had 2 major car accidents. I was rear-ended twice, one by a lady on her phone, and another time with some kids that were driving too fast. And it really tore into my life. And I'm on the mend now. I'm able to do my classes, and I'm able to live, and it looks like I'll be able to stay in the military, but now I'm enjoying my classes, so I'm transitioning. But, you know, it really took a toll on my life, and it ate up a lot of my savings. Because when you can't lift your arm, you have to pay somebody to help you do stuff. And the thing that was a real comfort to me was knowing that every month I've got those real estate checks coming in. And I guess I'd never really thought about it, because all of those checks that I have, they go towards paying off that $1 million of debt. And so, you know, I've got like 50 of it left. And so, you know, I don't even see that money. But just the knowledge of, wow, I have that coming in. Whether I work or not, that money is coming in. That is a blessing, and that's where I want everybody on the call today, or in person here, to be, okay? Again, we want to make our money when we buy. We don't want to just buy something that's expensive thinking it'll appreciate, because nobody knows the market, okay? And I want to encourage you today, if you've never bought a house other than the one you're living in, I would encourage you to consider the strategy of leapfrogging. That is going to be my book coming out this summer. We're in draft form right now. I've known several women in my community who have gotten themselves to a place of financial independence by buying a property that needed some elbow grease, living in it for 2-3 years, fixing it up as they go, and then renting that one out and buying another one, and fixing it up as they go, and renting that out and buying another one. You know, you can learn a lot. Me and my girlfriends have learned a lot from Home Depot and Lowe's on how to do things like tile installation and painting and a little basic woodworking and things like that. Like, I'm still going to hire out carpet, because I just can't do that very well, like without getting a big seam that frays and looks ugly. So I hire that. I hire out flooring. But there's a lot of stuff that you can learn to do. And if you buy a property that's suitable enough for you to live in for a little bit, you know, you can be earning while you learn. And then you can move up and move up and move up and move up. A lot of great strategies here. Please don't underestimate that power. Number 9 is what I call creative financing strategies. This is really a great great class that we'll do later in the fall probably for people who are like me and my husband. So we're good with money, but our exes are not good with money. And all the loans that we're still on together, our exes don't pay their bills. They don't pay them on time. They're routinely 2 and 3 months late. They might have collectors after them, foreclosures after them. Me and my husband, we are not going to the bank to be able to get real estate. We're just not. Now, I prefer to buy in cash anyway, but, you know, depending on where you invest, you may not be able to afford that. But we're not ever going to get a loan to go invest in real estate. So for us, creative strategies are important in our personal life. And you will find people like us who will really appreciate you if you have a property and you lease to own it to them where they don't have to go through the bank. You are the bank. Similarly, you'll find some landlords or investors who are tired of being landlords who will happily rent to own you their property. And we call that rent to own, or you can do a lease option. But let's say you are Joe Investor. You're tired of dealing with tenants. You bought into this. You thought you were going to make all this money, and you're not making any money. And J.J. Conway comes along, and I say, you know what? I would like to buy your property. I'd like you to do owner financing, and I'll pay you $2,000 for the right to buy this property at $100,000 in 2 years. And you look at me and say, wow, JJ, I have no money coming in. That $2,000 looks really good, and you're going to pay me $700 a month? I'll take it. And so what does JJ do? Well, I go out and look for somebody who, like me, is never going to be able to get a loan from the bank. And I go and I say, hey, I've got this house. You can buy this house from me. You can pay me $5,000 down and $1,000 a month. And you can, and you can either buy me out at the end of 2 years, or we can refinance at the end of 2 years. You see what I've done here? I'm leasing to own from one investor, and I'm turning around and leasing to own it to somebody else who, at the end of 2 years, if they're in a position to buy the property from the guy I'm contracted to buy it from, they do that transaction. I don't even have to buy the property. But what did I do? I paid him $2,000 for the right to buy his property, and I paid her she paid me $5,000 from the right to buy it from me. I just made a $3,000 spread. And every month I'm paying him $700 for the right to buy his property in 2 years, and every month she's paying me $1,000 for the right to buy that property in 2 years. I'm making a spread. Whether she buys the property or he backs out of selling to me, I still made money. Now, I like that. That's another win-win-win. All right, that's what we call lease option. The land contracts, that's basically I'm selling it to you, but I'm being the bank. It's you want to make sure you go down to the courthouse and file all that stuff so you're protected. Subject to is another great creative financing. This is basically where you just take over somebody's loan. So I'm going to buy your house from you, but I don't want to go through the bank, so I'll just take over your payments. And you'd say, JJ, who's going to do that? They're still on the hook. Hey, people are in all kinds of situations. People have family dynamics change. People get moved across country for their job. I don't ever look down on anybody for whatever reason they have to sell in a hurry. I just look for a way to help them and help my pocketbook. Okay, so there are a lot of different ways. These are just a couple. Number 10 in real estate investing is commercial, and this one you pretty much, unless you're making the deal, you really do need to have some money behind you. This is where you're buying like your retail buildings, your office buildings, apartments, and stuff like that. You get a lot more income, and there's a lot more incentive for your tenants to take good care of the property because it reflects their business. Another benefit of this one is you get better business hours, because I tell you what, I rent this space in the mall. The mall office is only open from 8 to 5. And they are not going to take my call at 6 o'clock. They got an emergency line, and they filter that out. And that's how commercial leases work. Also, you can pass more costs on to the tenants. So the mall here, we do all of our own maintenance. When that HVAC goes out, J.J. Conway has to write that check. Lord, please keep the HVAC through one more summer. I just need one more summer. When the lights and stuff, I need to replace the lights, and we're running into a situation where they no longer make the because they've changed the laws on what you can install in lighting, and everything has to go to a certain type of fluorescent light. You can't buy these replacements anymore. So you have to replace the whole ballast and everything in there. Well, I'm not going to spend that kind of money on a lease, but if I was going to be here for 5 years, I would have to spend that kind of money, you know? So commercial, you can pass off a lot to your tenants, and you don't have to do all the maintenance. You can make them pay part of your taxes. I mean, commercial is fantastic if you can break into it. But here's the thing. It costs more. Your tenants expect more out of you because this is a business transaction. It's not just somebody who doesn't know anything about real estate, right? And you can't just have your brother come fix stuff. You got to have everything to code, and you have to have professionals come in. So that's why we still have curtains in here, because I had them come in to tell me, okay, how can we build some walls? And they're like, you can't just build walls traditionally. You got to use like a certain kind of fire-rated ply wall, and you have to have things that go all the way up 20 feet to the top of the mall ceiling. And I was like, well, that is not worth it for a 2-year lease. You know, so if you're going to get involved in commercial, I highly recommend that you get educated. Now, for those of you on the line today who are in the D.C. area, I want you to look up the Capital RIA, Tammy Phelps. She's amazing. She's like me. She has a heart of a teacher, and she has done over 500 commercial deals. She currently owns, I think, 600 and something commercial units, and she does a free class in is it a Hampton Inn? That hotel that's right off of US 1 in the Beltway. They do a monthly meeting there on Wednesday. It is a fantastic meeting. She pours into everybody and gives a lot of great value. I can't say that for everybody. And unfortunately for you today that are here in the building, I don't know anybody here that has that same heart yet. I'm still meeting other investors here, and I know some good groups, but I don't know anybody like Tammy here in the Shreveport-Bossier area. But if you're in the D.C. area, or if you're up in Baltimore, you can get down there. Tammy Phelps. Oh, man, what's Mad Scientist's real name? I call him Mad Scientist. But you can look up the Real Deal Meetup. Those are some people that they work together on a lot of projects. They are some people that will honestly sit down and work with you on breaking into commercial. It's not for the faint of heart. Number 11 is apartments, which is like a type of commercial, but I'm giving it its own slide because I want to let you know it's not that difficult for investors like me and you to get into apartments. Now, it's a little bit harder to get into some of these retail strip malls, but you know, you can find some of these little bitty apartments, and even better, if you find one in the area you'd be willing to live in. You know, it says down here, you know, it's a bonus if the property is suitable for you to use. I was so excited when an old boyfriend came back into my life, okay? We broke up because he did not want to ever get married, and I was like, you know, I don't see myself dating you for 8 years and not marrying. So we broke it off after about a year, and after a while he came back, and I thought, oh, he changed his mind. He's realized what he was missing, and now he's ready to settle down. No, he just wanted to buy some commercial property. He wanted to buy an apartment complex. I worked it through how to buy this apartment. It was fantastic. A 24-unit apartment complex. It was $450,000 was the deal. He was already traveling to that location for football games. Every football game, he would host one of the biggest tailgates. And so he was spending a lot of money at the Holiday Inn in that town. And the thought was, hey, for the money that he's spending traveling to these things, he could use that as part of his money for these apartments, and he just takes 2 apartments, and every game he just stays there, him and his entourage. And so, you know, it's really great if you can use the property for something that you want to use that's consistent with your goals. You can find properties, apartments, small apartment complexes where the owner would be willing to lease to own to you, or do owner finance, or even mentor you through taking over the property for them. And we talk about driving for dollars when we talk about wholesaling. So this strategy can really work for you, okay? The thing about apartments is you've got a lot of economies of time. It's like you have all the units under one roof, so you don't have 20 different roofs to worry about. But the thing is, when stuff does go wrong, it's on a bigger scale. And a lot of times we think we're going to hire property management, but if your property management stinks, if your property manager stinks, or if they're not invested personally in that project, they could eat up all your profit, okay? So I have excellent materials for anybody who's interested in this. I have not put a class together on this yet, but if there's enough interest, I will. I have excellent materials on how to manage apartments and it's what I've used in my real estate investment career, and I'm sure it would be a benefit to you. All right, number 12. Boy, I almost made so many mistakes with this one because I thought, hey, land isn't going anywhere. They're not making any more of it. Buy it up while you can, and it's okay if you're spending a lot of money every month. It'll be worth something someday. Well, look, someday may never come. And I'm all about real estate strategies that allow you to build wealth today, that put cash flow in your pocket today and allow you to use that cash to fund your dreams, your goals, your retirement, your kids' college. I'm not looking for I'm going to hold this and pay $20,000 a year for this piece of land because in 20 years it's going to be worth $1 million. Okay, that is a form of real estate investing. If you have the money to lose, go for it. But most of us on my call today, we do not have that kind of money to lose, all right? So I want you to watch out for land. There are a lot of ways to profit from land. You need to make sure that you've got something lined up before you close on that deal. Because, yeah, that 20 acres might be a great deal, but you never know. You never know what the economy is going to do in 2 or 3 years. You know, Walmart was going to build up there on Airline, and everybody was selling their properties along Airline for super, super expensive prices, and then Walmart backed out of the deal. So now you've overpaid for your little piece of land because you thought you were going to profit once Walmart moved in and all these other companies want to build their stuff up there. Okay? So not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be careful. You can make a lot of money with some creative ways on land by like renting out the space, just let people park their RVs or their boats and stuff out there. This one down here at the bottom, this is another one we're going to talk about at the end. This is going to be the last. This is going to be the last technique I talk about deal making. If you know somebody with a lot of land and you know somebody who develops, like builders, you can bring those people together and you can get a transaction fee for brokering that deal or for arranging that deal or for engineering that deal, depending on what's legal in your state, all right? Number 13 is private lending. Hey, wait a second. We already talked about private lending. Well, we talked about in the beginning how I did a private lending deal when we were talking about flipping, but let me just rehash private lending. There's different ways. If you have a little bit of money and you want to contribute to a private lending deal, you would pool your money with other investors. If you have a lot of money, then there's things that you can do, such as being the hard money lender that a real estate investor would go to get their money to rehab a project, or you could do private mortgage holding. So basically, you're the person that's being the bank for somebody who wants to buy the house, okay? And that kind of leads me into this next one. This is an area that I'm actually working on this year, trying to get some expertise. So when this is one of those where I don't teach a lot of details on it because I'm not experienced in this area, but I want to be, because this is a technique that allows you to change people's lives and put a lot of money into your pocket. Note buying is where you buy an underperforming note. So somebody's not paying their mortgage and they owe that money. And what the bank can say is, hey, JJ, I've got a property that's worth $100,000. The owner isn't paying her mortgage. I'll sell you this debt for $20,000. And I look at it and I say, I can restructure that. Bank, I'm going to buy this debt from you for $20,000. So now I've bought it from the bank, and the person owes me $100,000 for their house. I paid $20 for it. They owe me $100. But here's the thing. They already weren't paying the bank. They are not likely to pay me. So what I would do then is I would change the deal, and I would go up to Miss Susie or Mr. Joe and say, hey, I understand you've been having a hard time. We're your new lender now. We'd like to work with you. We have a homeowner's assistance program that will reduce the cost of your mortgage by 50%. We'll restructure your loan and give you a new lower payment, and now you can stay in your house. It's a win-win-win. It's a win for the bank because they get rid of this bad debt. It's a win for me because now I have the opportunity to acquire this property, because if they don't pay me, I'm going to foreclose and take the property. And now I've got the $100,000 property for $20K. That's a good deal. And it's a win for them, because if I restructure it and I drop them down to only own $50 with my homeowner's assistance program that I just created in my head, then now they only owe $50, and instead of having to pay me $1,000 a month, maybe they can only pay me $500 a month. They're doing better, and whether I get their house or not, I'm getting their money. And at $20,000, you know, if I drop that down, I'll make that money back in 3 years. And they're going to keep buying their house, and in 30 years they'll pay it off. But look at all the extra money I will have made off that deal. That's a win, win, win. Now, there's a lot of risks in note buying, because a lot of times we're not in a position to buy the first position on that note, and so we might get wiped out when somebody else who is in first position on that note says, I'm going to foreclose, and then they don't sell it for enough to get us our money back. They just get their money back, you know. So you can get wiped on that. It's also very much learned by experience niche. There's a school in Dallas that teaches people how to do this. That's why I'm really excited about doing that this year. And it's one of those where if you're easy to work with and you make good on buying the note, people who are selling notes, the companies that sell the notes, they will continue to give them to you, because it's all about moving the money and continue moving the money. The faster velocity of your money, the more money everybody makes. And so it's all about moving these products. But there's a really wonderful strategy that does not require you to buy the house. It does require you to have money, though. And that's why it's at the end of my presentation, not at the beginning. You might have noticed the stuff at the beginning, I took out my time continuing. The stuff at the beginning of the presentation is the stuff that doesn't cost any money to get started with. The stuff at the end is the stuff that really does cost some money to get started. But deal making, everybody can do. Deal making is where you make money off this real estate, and you don't buy the house, you don't deal with any tenants, you don't negotiate any contracts, you are just finding ways to make money off the deal. There are a million different ways to make money off of real estate deals. You know, so we talked about the property itself, how you can make money and all those techniques we just used, but there are also industries that are related to investing, such as being a realtor, home inspector, staging. You know, staging is not as big out here as it is on the East Coast. But on the East Coast, I know ladies who make big money every month by bringing in furniture and decorations to help rehabbers sell their house faster, because it makes a difference. Then let's drop it down to a tertiary level, and let's look at other things like vending machines and ATMs. Okay, so I'm not going to buy a strip mall, but I notice that somebody's buying this strip mall, and I know how to go get an ATM. Hey, let me put an ATM on your property. I'll pay you X amount rental fee every month, and I'll charge the ATM fee, and I'll get that money. Let me put a vending machine on your property. I actually just consulted with someone the other day who wants to open up a vending machine business. She wants to buy the vending machine, place them in certain locations, and then she'll stock them. The sky is the limit. And the biggest one with deal making is you can do all those ancillary things, or you can bring the people together. So you want to have a vending machine business, and you have a new strip mall, or you're renovating your apartments. I bring you two together and get a referral fee. Now look at that. I didn't even have to do anything. I just had to talk, and I can talk. So this is one of those areas that really highlights one of the most important concepts in real estate investing. I already told you my number one rule, which is make your money when you buy. And I also told you that if you buy it cheap enough, you can always sell it fast, okay? The biggest thing you need to make all of that flow together is relationships. It's relationships with other investors, and it's relationships with people who operate in the real estate space. So lawyers, you know, title companies, realtors, brokers, mortgage brokers, hard money lenders, the whole gamut of people. Oh, there's my continuum. It's in the wrong place. And we're recording, so there you go. That's what we were talking about earlier. You know, these things over here either cost no money or a little bit of money, whereas these things over here cost a lot more. I need to go back and fix that. So what we've done today is we've done a summary. Oops, I need to go back. We've done a summary of 15 different ways that you can make money in real estate investing. All right, that concludes our class for today. But if anybody wants to stay on the line, I'm going to go into bird dogging and wholesaling and how you can get started in those areas. We'll talk about driving for dollars. We'll talk about how to do some of the negotiations. We'll talk about what you're looking for, and then we'll talk about how you build those networks and how you build those relationships with other investors. All right, so at this point, I'm going to pause this session and ask if anybody has questions. I'm going to also, if you have a question and you email, don't forget to Don't forget to put REI 101 so that I understand that it's for me and not some kind of scam, because I'm doing a search right now for REI 101 questions. 101, let me just put real estate, yeah. Okay. Come on. Okay. Oh, thank you. Aw. Well, I'm really glad that you guys are getting something out of this. That's really nice. I don't see any actual questions here, though. So if somebody wants to speak up on the line, or did you have any questions? Okay. If anybody wants to speak up on the line, you can go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to stop this recording. And in order for me to stop it and start the next one, I have to actually completely shut everything down. So hang in there and I'm going to shut it all down, and then I'm going to bring it all back up if you want to stay on for bird dogging and wholesaling. Again, this is JJ Conway. I thank you guys for being on the line with me. I miss you guys from D.C. And for those of you who are here in the Shreveport-Bossier area, I hope that next month you will be in person at the Pierre Bossier Mall, 9 o'clock on the 3rd of March for our Tax Lien Riches workshop. All right. Y'all take care and be blessed. Close that out.